At Wembley Stadium, here comes a sweet reunion. 5 years since last Manchester City embraced the Carabao Cup, then for the 4th year in a row. One season without a trophy was one season too long. This prize was once their property, and it again.
Carabao Cup!
Winners again in 2026, Manchester City. On the League Cup for the 7th time in the 21st century, the 9th time in their history. Whether or not this becomes significant in the Premier League race, well, time will tell, but this is a moment in its own right. It is of its own accord, indicative of City's intention to trade in trophies again. For them, a quarter-final to come, a 9-point gap to close in the Premier League. But this is done, this is real, this is fact, this is theirs. City are back on the honours board.
Yeah, he's a master, Pep Guardiola. He knows how to win. And there's a lot of young players that have contributed enormously today. Trafford, Nico O'Reilly, Kusanov, establishing themselves in a new Manchester City team. And you can't keep them down, and you can't keep Pep Guardiola down. And those Arsenal players, the masters up top, the pupils are down below, watching on, hoping that in a few weeks' time that they can return the favour.
For Arsenal, a quadruple, no more. For them, there is Europe still to conquer, the Premier League. I'm sure Pep wasn't man of the match. Perhaps he's just the messenger. He has passed on a few great messages. He has won this competition now more than anybody else. And he retains the admiration and the friendship of Mikel Arteta, who 4 weeks from now has to try and crack him all over again. Lovely personal moment for Bernardo Silva. Last time in 2021, Fernandinho was their captain. In the years before, their modern greats, David Silva, Vincent Kompany. They've led City dancing back down those stairs. Way back, Mike Doyle, Tony Book. Now here he is off his 449th game for City. The most decorated of the current cohort. Enjoying the privilege which his extraordinary career has surely merited. This, for Bernardo Silva himself, a 15th major City honour. Still no Wembley goal for Erling Haaland, but a big, big Wembley smile this time. Nico O'Reilly stole the headlines, and Manchester City, as has been their habit for a decade and so much more, have stolen the prize, better than stolen it. They deserved it, they merited it, and they will carry it home with pride and joy. City 2, Arsenal 0, and the Carabao Cup winners of 2026 mark our Manchester City.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you, Gary, as well. You noticed something in all of that, Jamie, with Pep Guardiola and his body, maybe not occasionally on that balcony, but certainly in the build-up to it, and now you noticed something in his body language and demeanour.
Even his celebrations, but when he's, I mean, at one point I thought he was going to 2-foot the hoardings. He nearly put his foot through it. This would mean a lot to him. Obviously this year people were talking about Manchester City, are they the same force in transition, lots of different things like that. Everyone's spoken so highly about Mikel Arteta. He's shown today he's still the governor. You know, there was much the better team. Tactically, they were classier. They knew what they had to do. He got his team in the right frame of mind. And this would have meant so much to him. It would have meant so much. Even though he's good friends with Mikel, you always want to win. doesn't matter. You know, that really showed me today with his celebrations.
I think what for me was when he's been playing Semenyo up front with Haaland, they've sort of been in each other's spaces. I think it was a masterstroke to play Semenyo on the right and Doku on the left, and let Cherki do what he does best and just roam. Haaland before the game, you could see he was so pumped. He come out over afterwards as well and said, you see, I told you I was going to do it. But in terms of the tactical battle, Pep got it right today.
Look, you can look at this, can't you, in terms of the bigger picture, and I am sure we will in terms of the title race over the course of the next hour or so. But it was almost as if Pep Guardiola and City felt they just needed to prove a point. They just needed to prove a point to the apprentice or to the team that could take the title. Don't forget about us.
Yeah, but you can't forget about them with the quality they got, the experience they got, and in the end, you know what I mean, they just, I thought they picked it on the fact that we started pretty well. We should have, the chance that Kai Havertz had, it proves you have to try and take them chances, because once City got moving in it, comfortable, it really did look like we didn't have too many options of what we were doing, especially when we started. We couldn't get out of our half. They pressed us high, we knocked it long, we couldn't keep it. And then we couldn't play the ball through the midfield. But they've got to get the credit for City, what's gone on. Everybody's knocking City about what they've done this season. They've not been quite the same. But what they've shown again in the final is what they're capable of doing. They win finals, they win big games.
And they control it as well, don't they?
Well, they did control it, and I think that we made it a lot easier for them to control it. Too many people had poor games for us. Obviously, the mistake from the goalkeeper is one that, you know, we could go into that debate about the second goalkeeper and the sentiment and all that rubbish. But the fact is that it's a final, and the mistake from the second goalkeeper has cost us, and then they scored soon after that. And then, you know, we kind of lose our way in the game before we could get the substitutes on.
I think as well, Manchester City. Before the game, I questioned with Kusanov playing at centre-back with Ake, who's not had a lot of football for a while. I thought maybe that's an area where Arsenal could exploit them. It didn't. They never made any difference. They were still very good defensively. They were organised. Rodri in midfield ran the game. And I just think Cherki has given Manchester City, not just Manchester City, I think football, there is so much to it that I love about how he plays. We see so many players now, they keep it simple, they play in the pockets. That freedom, that maverick, he's the sort of player that I want to watch when I watch football. Doing the skills, that might get a little bit of stick when he's keeping the ball up.
No,
I don't care.
Why not?
I love it. I don't care what people say. We see
Good luck to him.
goalkeepers doing drag backs and putting their foot on the ball. I think he's got something about him. He's different, and that's what the football needs.
I think it all fell down for Arsenal. In the first half, I thought in the first 20 minutes, they knew exactly what they needed to do in terms of their press. In that second half, they did what Arsenal have been doing in recent weeks and going really low. Then you allowed Man City to get on the ball, be confident, and then they just couldn't get out. Wrighty was screaming up there, saying, where's Martinelli? Get him on, they needed an out. Gyökeres did good running power in that first half, but in that second half, they just couldn't get out.
I think, but going back to your point though, Ian, I could not agree more. Now, I know people will say, there's sentiment, and he's played in the earlier rounds. Kepa is not as good as Raya. That's why he is number 2. So why, in a major cup final, when you're trying to get across the line, you've not won a trophy in so long, do you decide to play him? You have to take responsibility for that. That is a monumental error. You know, I'm not saying he's not a bad goalkeeper. He isn't as good as Kepa, and it has come back and backfired big time. Now you could turn around and say, well, Trafford's not your number 1 either.
Well, that's a very valid point to come back at you on.
We didn't even get tested, so we got one
really good save in the first.
Three really good saves. After that, he hardly had to touch the ball. It was easy for him.
Yeah, but
I just don't think it was it's the right. That's not me being wise after the event. I said it before the game.
No, I think you're right. When you asked me the question about goalkeepers at the start, Trafford was brought in as a number 1. He was ready. It's just that Donnarumma became on the market. Raya, and the difference between Raya and Kepa, he's so big. So in a big game, you're thinking, you've got to go with Raya. Look, we can talk about it after it, like Jamie says, but ultimately we're talking about it because it cost Arsenal the game. And that is the moment we talk about in football all the time. If he had a worldie, wouldn't we be talking about it now? Yeah. We were giving him praise. Unfortunately, that is the case.
Well, the gamble didn't work. It didn't pay off. Like Trafford, obviously, he's done well from because that save was a great save at the start. I think it was the fashion of the mistake what makes you real. That's a number 2. That's a mistake from a number 2. It was something you wouldn't see a number 1 goalkeeper make, and it's unfortunate because it's a turning point. I think if we don't concede that goal, we get the subs on, we might get into the game a bit.
Just watching Pep Guardiola just right behind us a moment, but just watching the City players here with the City fans, shouldn't actually forget either that this is a refreshed, rejuvenated, newish Manchester City squad. So whilst we may have in the build-up talked about, 15 major trophies under Guardiola and so on and so forth, for a lot of these players, this is a new experience, actually.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's the fact of when Pep goes in January, he knows he needs some quality. He brought in Semenyo, he brought in Gay, who couldn't feature tonight, and they look like he steadied the ship a bit, and then a couple of results have not gone their way. Everyone's saying that he did a whole new rebuild. It's not about a whole new rebuild for me. It's more just tweaking certain situations. Man City, when they can control the game, they're perfect. Where they've struggled at times is when in midfield they need that little bit more energy. Jamie's perfectly right when he talks about Shirky. Off the ball, Shirky won't give you what some of the other players can give you, but on the ball, it gives you just that impetus to go forward with that quality. And these players are still young, they've only got time now, and this team will only get better. They've fallen short of their standards, of what we all expect of Man City. That's because Arsenal have been so good, and they've found ways to win games. The difference is now is what Man City can do going forward.
Arsenal today had nobody really to get their foot on the ball and make them play. Havertz is not that player. He's not the sort of player like an Odegaard or an Eze in midfield. Saka's off the ball at the moment. You're not going to see him running beyond anyone. Trossard wants to come into pockets. I think Kusanov did a great job defensively against Arsenal.
Zubimendi, we know our quality he's got. Even he couldn't get going today,
But it's a lot to ask for him, isn't it?
Yeah.